Good morning, children. Welcome to the next session of Geography, chapter 2, Forest and Wildlife. So today we are going to deal with the part 2 section of this chapter. So in the last chapter, you have studied about the importance of flora and fauna, then the different types of forest, then the categorization of these flora and animals by IUCN, the depletion of forest. Hope you remember all these. So we'll deal with some of the important, some other important topics related to this chapter. So now we'll see what are the reasons for the decline in biodiversity. So there are several reasons for the decline in biodiversity like habitat destruction, hunting, poaching, overexploitation, environmental pollution, poisoning, forest fires, and again overpopulation and inequitable distribution of resources. So what do you mean by inequitable distribution of resources? As the population increases, some areas use more of these resources than in other areas. Again, it is said that the richest 5% of the people, richest 5% is using more of the forest resources than the poorest 25%. So there is no even distribution of resources. So the destruction of forest and wildlife is not just a biological issue. The biological loss is strongly correlated with the loss of the cultural diversity also. So even the people are also affected. It is affecting the life of the people also. So it has this loss has increasingly marginalized and impoverished many indigenous and other forest dependent communities. So they who are directly depending upon the resources like food, drink, medicine, culture, spirituality, etc. So again, among these poor people also, women are most affected. So how can we say that women are more affected? Because they are the people who bear the major responsibility of collection of fuel, fodder, water, and other basic subsistence needs. So as these resources are depleted, women are actually in trouble because they have to move a long distance to get all these things. So they are away from the family for a long time, and this will affect their health. It will cause serious health problems for women and negligence of home and children. Then again, because of the increased hours of work, which often has a social implication. Then the indirect impact of degradation such as severe drought or deforestation, induced floods, etc. also hits the poor people. Poverty in these cases is a direct outcome of environmental destruction. So something has to be done in order to protect the people living in the forest. So the government has taken certain steps to conserve the forest. What are the different steps taken by the government to conserve the forest? Let's see. So let's see what are the steps taken by the government to conserve the forest. So the Indian Wildlife Protection Act was implemented in 1972. An All India list of protected species was published. The program ensured protecting endangered species by banning hunting and restricting trade in wildlife. Then several wildlife sanctuaries and national parks were established. Then several projects like Project Tiger, Project Rhino, Project Crocodile, etc. was established to protect these animals. In Wildlife Act of 1980 and 1986, several butterflies, moths, beetles and one type of dragonfly was also added to the list. Then again in the Wildlife Act of 1992, even plants were included in the list. So mass media like TV, radio, newspaper were also used for bringing awareness among the people. Next, Project Tiger. The tiger is one of the key wildlife species in the faunal web. In 1973, the authorities realized that the tiger population had dwindled to 1,827 from an estimated 55,000 at the turn of the century. So there were many reasons for the threat to this tiger population. So Project Tiger, one of the well publicized wildlife campaign in the world, was launched in 1973. Initially it showed a success as the tiger population went up in the years 1985 and 1989, but finally it started dropping. But now, because of the severe protection acts by the government, we can see that the tiger population is going on increasing. So here is a picture of the Royal Bengal tiger. Many sanctuaries, national parks for protecting the tiger population, like the Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand, Sundarbans National Park in West Bengal, Bandhavgarh National Park in Madhya Pradesh, Sariska Wildlife Sanctuary in Rajasthan, Manas Tiger Reserve in Assam, Periyar Tiger Reserve in Kerala. These are some of the important forests which is allotted for the preservation or for the protection of tiger community. So next we'll see the types and distribution of forest and wildlife. In India, much of its forests and wildlife comes under following categories. They are categorized into three, like reserved forest, protected forest and unclassed forest. We'll see what is a reserved forest. So reserved forests, usually they are protected forests with natural habitat that has high degree of protection from any kind of hunting or poaching. No individual or no public is allowed to enter into these forests. They are owned by the government of India. So this is the picture of a reserved forest. We can see there are many reserved forests in India, and we'll see some of the important reserved forests in India. So some important reserved forests in India are Hanbasagara Reserve Forest in Karnataka, Bega Reserve Forest in Kerala, Attapadi Reserve Forest in Kerala, Sholayar Reserve Forest Kerala, then Palani Hills Forest Conservation Area in Tamil Nadu. Now, what do you mean by protected forests? See, what do you mean by protected forests? These forests are natural areas where habitat and resident wildlife species have certain degree of protection. But these areas are little bit less restricted than the reserved forest. Then next is unclassed forest. See, usually national parks and wildlife sanctuaries come under protected forest. Then unclassed forests are forests which is they can be forest land or wasteland or any other land. It is recorded in land records as forest, but not notified in the government gazette as reserved or protected forest under Indian Forest Act. So they also come under unclassed forest. These forests can be owned by the government or it can be of private property. As of April 2012, there are 112 national parks and 440 wildlife sanctuaries, which may also include bird sanctuaries. So do you know the difference between national parks and wildlife sanctuaries? You might have come across the names of many national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. So what is the difference? In a national park, no human activities are allowed. So boundaries are fixed and not open for the general public. Whereas in wildlife sanctuaries, human activities are allowed and boundaries are not fixed. They are open for general public. Public can get inside the forest and see the beauty of the forest and the wildlife. So that is the difference between national park and wildlife sanctuary. So next we'll see some of the pictures of wildlife sanctuary and national park. See, here are some pictures related to for national parks and wildlife. So next we will move on to community and conservation. How does community help in conserving the forest? Now, how does the community help in conservation of forests? So conservation strategies are not new in our country. We often ignore that in India, forests are also home to some of the traditional communities. So in some areas, the communities are struggling to conserve the forest. So examples we can see is in Sariska Tiger Reserve, Rajasthan, villagers have fought against mining by citing the Wildlife Protection Act. In many areas, villagers themselves are protesting against protecting the habitats. They are protecting the habitats and explicitly rejecting government involvement. So the inhabitants of 5 villages in the Alwar district of Rajasthan, they have set up their own rules and regulations against hunting. In Jharkhand, the Munda tribes stopped the cutting of Mahua and Kadam trees, as these trees were considered as their sacred trees. So in the Chipko movement in the Himalayas, you might have studied about Chipko movement in history also. So resisted deforestation and encouraged community afforestation. So this is how the communities are helping in the conservation of forest. Then before going to joint forest management, see, here is a picture of here is a picture of the Chipko movement. What do you mean by joint forest management? In India, joint forest management program furnishes a good example for involving local communities in the management and restoration of degraded forests. The program has been in formal existence since 1988, when the state of Odisha passed the first resolution for joint forest management. It depends upon the formation of local institutions that undertake protection activities. And these communities, they say they enjoy the benefits like non-timber forest producers, and they also share in the timber harvesting by successful protection. So that is about JFM. So next we'll move on to the sacred groves. So here are some pictures of sacred groves. See what do you mean by, we'll see what do you mean by sacred groves. Just see the pictures of sacred groves. So sacred groves are areas which has been kept aloof without any interference by certain groups of people. So we'll see in detail what are sacred groves. So nature worship is an age-old tribal belief based on the premise that all creations of nature have to be protected. So such beliefs have preserved several virgin forests in pristine form called sacred groves, the forest of God and goddesses. These patches of forests or parts of large forests have been left untouched by the local people, and any interference with them is banned. Usually these sacred groves are the remnants of evergreen forest patches, protected and conserved based on religious beliefs. It is actually a great respiratory of many endemic, endangered and economically important plant species. Even in Kerala, we have certain such types of sacred groves. In Kerala, it's a common practice among people to assign a part of their land, especially as the old joint families we call Taravadu. There we assign a part of their land near to the house as abode of goddess Durga or serpent god called Naga. So these areas are well protected, and human interferences are not allowed. So they perform certain pujas there occasionally, and this area is well protected. The plants and animals are protected in this region. But because of the splitting up of joint families and increase in population, we find that these types of sacred groves are disappearing day by day. So with this, let me conclude with the chapter. See, what we have to keep in mind is that we have to take care of our forest and wildlife resources. We have to protect the forest and wildlife resources, and always keep in mind sustainability. Because the coming generation also have to enjoy the beauty of the forest and view the different types of wildlife which is there existing in the world. So let's accept only those economic or development activities that are people centric, environment friendly and economically rewarding. So thank you. With this we end up, and we'll come in the next session with another topic. So till then, goodbye.